So Joe Biden's given one of his final speeches here the other day, and he laments how social media companies need to be held accountable and the mainstream media doesn't have as much influence as it used to be. Make no mistake about it, the lamentations of the Democrats and Biden specifically aren't that, oh my goodness, people like Elon Musk bought Twitter and they're wealthy. They have no problem with wealthy people influencing politics. They didn't have a problem with Zuckerbucks in the 2020 election. They don't have a problem with George Soros and a bunch of other wealthy billionaires that were financing the campaigns of politicians, prosecutors, etc. in this country. What they're really upset about is controlling the narrative and the fact that they're no longer able to do so with impunity. And so they're furious that instead of having to go to the corporate media that can craft whatever narrative the establishment wants, that people could have more of an open voice on places like social media. This is actually a bigger threat to them than anything Donald Trump could potentially do. This means that people don't buy their garbage. Why is it that Biden's leaving with a 61% disapproval rating? It's not that Biden's uniquely terrible, though he is. I mean, he has dementia and basically hasn't been there throughout much of his term. But it's because people are now able to freely and openly share information in ways that was more difficult in the past because of the control of the narrative. They'll lament and tell you, no, you have to trust the experts in the media, the foreign policy experts, the scientists, when we can see over and over again they're wrong. Remember when we had to trust the scientists that said, look, COVID clearly couldn't have came from a lab in China? Remember when they said you were non-essential and we had to do everything possible to stop the ravages of the pandemic? But you know what was worse than that? Racism. So it was okay to go out and protest racism and that wouldn't spread the pandemic? Remember that? Remember when the experts told you that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation? You remember when the experts told you that Trump was connected to Russia and people like Adam Schiff were going on Jake Tapper's show saying they'd seen the proof of it? All of these were lies, and it's infuriating to the establishment that they may no longer be able to have complete control over the narrative. And so when Biden talks about accountability for social media, what this is a threat. He's saying we need to be able to threaten and hold consequences to social media companies that allow Americans to freely speak. That's not acceptable, and we need to get back to controlling that narrative and punishing. We can see from Zuckerberg's appearance on Rogan's show just how bad the Biden administration was in forcing places like Facebook to shut down conversations they didn't want. Make no mistake about it, all of the outrage about things, Trump would supposedly do this, that, and the other. The difference is one side wants communication to be allowed to happen freely amongst Americans, and the other side is furious they can no longer use the government to pressure companies to censor arguments that they don't like.